How would you like to have a simple strategy that helps students improve the quality of their sentences and requires little prep time on your part? It sounds like a win-win, doesn't it? Sentence expansion is an easy way to help students add details to their writing. As I introduce you to this strategy, I will walk you through how to incorporate it in the lesson plan cycle. Begin by checking prerequisite skills to be sure that this is the strategy students really need. We will look at the learning intentions and success criteria you might want to consider when planning your lesson. Also, you will walk away with an understanding of how to scaffold students' learning by using the I do it, we do it, you do it process. It is important to note that students need a basic understanding of how to write strong, simple sentences before introducing sentence expansion. Also, having introduced them to compound and complex sentences will help them build upon their knowledge. Start with a review by asking questions from previous lessons and check background knowledge when introducing sentence expansion. For the purpose of this strategy, we want to be sure students have necessary prerequisite skills for learning how to expand sentences. Keep in mind, when reviewing with students, it must be interactive. In other words, have students respond to questions instead of you telling them what they learned. See what they can recall from their previous learning and how to create and write sentences. Here is an example of possible interactive review questions I might use to check prerequisite skills. This will help me gauge if students are ready to move on to sentence expansion. To get all students involved in the review, give them think time before having them partner talk to answer each question. Once I have established that my students do have the prerequisite skills for the sentence expansion strategy, I am ready to introduce them to the day's objectives. I like to use something called learning intentions and success criteria. These allow both the students and the teacher to know exactly what they are going to learn and how they are going to learn. Those things a student needs to achieve for success. As you see, I have two possible learning intentions to introduce students to sentence expansion based on TEKS expectations. My success criteria covers both learning intentions. Now I'm ready to begin diving into the strategy. I feel confident that students will be successful because of the prep I did up front. The routine I will use is I do it, we do it, you do it. We are following what John Hattie calls the Goldilocks principle. Not too easy, not too hard, but just right. I begin with I do it, a model in which I slightly exaggerate what I show and tell students so they can clearly see my thinking as I use the sentence expansion strategy. Sharing your thinking with students can be challenging, so here are some sentence starters you might use as you model. Because this model will take some time, be sure to gain responses so students don't check out. Make it an enthusiastic demonstration. Avoid being Charlie Brown's teacher, where all the students are hearing is wah, 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 wah. To immediately get students involved, we choral read the directions together. Then I read the start sentence. I tell students we are going to expand the sentence by answering 3 questions: why, when, and where. We begin focusing on why did the boy cheer? I share with students that a boy might cheer because his favorite team won the game. He might also cheer because he found out he was going to Disney World. Now I ask students to think of one idea on their own as to why a boy would cheer and then share their idea with their partner. If they cannot think of one, they may use one of mine. After the partners talk, a few students share out their ideas with the class and we decide on one choice to use. In this case, we decide to use the boy cheered because friends arrived for his surprise birthday party. The model continues in the same fashion, answering the questions when, and where. Next, it's time to model for students how to pull all our thoughts together in one dynamic sentence that expands on the original one. Share thinking about different ways the sentence can be put together. When thinking about how to put the sentences together, share with students how you determined where punctuation, like a comma, might go. When the final sentence is decided on, write it down and then do a choral read. Let students know there may be more than one way to correctly write the sentence. Our final step is to go back and check our sentences with the success criteria. Because all expectations are met, we know we are successful. Depending on the needs of your students, you might wish to do one more model before going on to the next stage. We do it. Now it is time to move into the we do it portion of their learning, where students begin to take more ownership of their writing. In this stage of learning, knowing the needs and abilities of your students is crucial. For some students, you may be able to give them a large chunk of the strategy to complete under your watchful eyes. For example, you might ask students to read the start sentence and answer the 3 questions that follow. Then, you may have them share their thoughts with a partner and move into a whole class discussion. The final step would be to have them write their sentence, share with a partner, and then whole group share. For other students, this would be overwhelming. Instead, add deeper levels of scaffolding. For example, you might choral read the start sentence. Next, you would define the term spectators using examples and non-examples. Don't assume kids know the meaning, especially when you consider your SPED and ELL and ESL students. From there, you would work together on the first 2 questions as you did in the I do it example, and then let students answer the 3rd question, how, on their own or with a partner. Pulling all the parts of the sentence together may need some tight hand-holding. For the next sentence in the we do it portion of students' learning, you might have students answer 2 of the questions on their own and work together on the rest. It may be necessary to have 5 or more layers of scaffolding built in for students to successfully learn the strategy. It is in the we do it portion that most learning occurs. When students write their sentences, let them know the order in which they include the answers does not matter as long as it makes sense. Partner sharing and partner helping is important in the we do it part of the strategy. Set up partnerships with a stronger student partnered with a struggling learner. Notice, I did not say strongest with weakest. This would cause frustration for both students. Scaffold your students together appropriately. At some point in student learning, you need to let students try expanding a sentence on their own. To help you determine when this should happen, 80% of your students should be successful with each layer of scaffolding before releasing more independence to them. For the 20% of students needing extra help, this is the time to pull them into a small group. After students show a deep understanding of sentence expansion, you might use it as a warm-up activity when other writing projects are not being done in class. More layers of scaffolding might be necessary to help struggling writers to expand sentences. For example, you might 1. Expand a sentence by answering either 1 or 2 questions instead of 3 as done here. 2. Follow the I do it, we do it, you do it steps when adding the 2nd question and then again for adding the 3rd question. Add a you all do it step after we do it and before you do it, where students work with a partner to write an expanded sentence. Before ending each session on sentence expansion, an interactive review needs to happen. Moving through the I do it, we do it, you do at stages of sentence expansion instruction may take more than one day. After students have had many opportunities to successfully practice using sentence expansion under your watchful eye, move the strategy into other areas of their learning where writing occurs. For example, you can see how it might be used to help students answer essay questions with more depth and breadth in social studies. Here is an example of the strategy being used in science class. So, with this simple sentence expansion strategy that takes very little teacher prep, you help students build confidence in their writing through scaffolded instruction. Keep purposefully revisiting the sentence expansion strategy because, as with all things learned, you must use it or lose it.